Stay where you are, pet. I need you next. For the first time, an Urkin named Bio had defied the Almighty Tallest. Bio's computer pet companion unit, which would be renamed Standard Issue Information Retrieval Unit 45 years from now, was about to do the same. He hesitated, unsure of what was happening, but knowing it was far from right. Before Bio fell to the floor and stopped struggling, he had frantically given his CPC unit a command.
Gerwin, don't! Get away from here, he's crazy!
Almighty Tallest Marbug gave the cables plugged into Bio's pack a violent tug. They came free, thus freeing Bio, but the wounded Urkin made no attempt to get to his feet and escape. Gerwin was very conflicted and afraid. Bio addressed him for the final time after one more weak, painful gasp.
Don't mind your master,
Marbug cooed.
He panicked. We were testing something for the good of the world, and he changed his mind last minute about being my test subject. I promise, pet, if you don't panic, it will be fine.
Gerwin sensed the malice through the sweetened tone. Gerwin's vision shifted to red as his instincts finally made a decision. Bright blue flames exploded from his feet as he rocketed towards the scene, grabbed Bio's limp body from under the arms, and circled back to fly out the door he came from. Gerwin heard heavy footsteps pursuing them. He continued to fly, even when the metallic thumping fell out of antenna shot. This was a colossal building, with 100 rooms, 50 maintenance closets, and quite a maze of air vents. Gerwin chose the air vents. Though Marbug would follow his trail of smoke from his fuel, he was too large to fit through, unlike Gerwin and Bio. Soon Gerwin felt safe enough to stop, but he wasn't relieved. With his saddened eyes back to the color cyan, he set Bio down on his side, and Bio didn't appear to have a chance. His skin was paling, his eyes were wide open, but unfocused and unblinking, and even they were beginning to lose their color. His pupils were transparent, and he did not draw any breath. Gerwin's mind reeled. He placed a claw to Bio's chest. The pumping muscle underneath it had given up. Gerwin was a robot, but he was given the ability and allowance to form tears. He was also built to accompany and protect his master. He had failed to protect his master. Gerwin drew away from Bio's completely lifeless form, hoping his pack would restart if he kept enough of his distance, like one is supposed to do when handling a clinically dead Urkin.
Master?
Gerwin tried to keep his voice down to a whisper to avoid getting caught, but he wanted to scream. 5 minutes passed. Nothing new occurred. Another 5 minutes passed. Nothing new occurred. Yet another 5 minutes passed, and still, Bio's pack refused to restart. Bio was no more, and Gerwin finally realized this was true. Trembling violently, he reached out for his master again. When he touched him, he found that he was colder than normal, almost colder than metal, and Gerwin sobbed. He hugged Bio around the chest and shoulders in useless comfort, and grieved as quietly as he possibly could, with the voice that could be mistaken for a Smeat's if not for the robotic distortion.
I love you. I love you so much. I love you. Bio.
If he had waited another moment longer to say this, he would have been heard.
Would you stop shaking?
A voice snapped, but not to him.
Golly, excuse me.
A voice number 2 said,
Have you ever dealt with a malfunctioning robot? The Tallest says it killed an Urkin 20 minutes ago.
This was a lie. Gerwin glared, involuntarily turning red. The 2 Urkins didn't catch the brief buzzing sound over their own talking.
How are are we going to destroy it anyway?
Voice number 2 wondered.
Aren't these things indestructible almost? What's a little gun going to—
Not just any little gun, newbie.
Voice number 1 chided.
This is designed specifically for malfunctioning CPC units. All we have to do is shoot it. Not only will it stun it, it will reset it. Then we'll take it apart for scraps like the tallest said.
And the other part?
Yeah, he wants us to find Bio's body so we can have his pack incinerated as quickly as possible. Don't you think it's weird that he wants that done as quickly as possible? As if it can't wait? You're the one being weird. Do not question the tallest.
Gerwin looked back to Bio. Gently, he pushed his shoulder to turn him over and see his pack. Bio may have been dead, but this part of him still existed. If his pack wasn't too hopelessly impaired, maybe he could be recycled, reincarnated as a new Smeet. He wouldn't remember that he was once Bio, but his identity would still exist within the code. Gerwin waited for the 2 Urkins to pass. Then, with his foot on Bio's side for leverage, he began to pry off the pack with both claws. When it came free with a soft, unpleasant crunch, Gerwin held it in front of himself and stared. Then he embraced it tightly, as if it was already the next Smeet it was going to be passed down to. Gerwin's plan was to drop off this valuable pack in the nearest Urkin birthing facility. As soon as it was placed with the thousands of other recycled packs, it would be impossible to find. It would especially be impossible after it was transformed back to newborn Smeet size. Gerwin took one last glance at Bio's body as he backed away, preparing to leave it. With much effort, he had to self-reprogram, removing the code that told him that this was Bio. It wasn't anymore. Death was such a confusing thing, and Gerwin hated it.
I love you,
he repeated.
I'll save you, Master. I won't know which one is you. Maybe I'll never find out. But you'll be alive again. Okie dokie?
An odd phrase Bio and Gerwin would overuse to the point of it being bothersome, until Marbach demanded them to stop it less than a month ago. Okie dokie was their favorite thing to say to each other. Flashing bright red once more in determination, Gerwin slowly turned away from his master's body. Then he flew down the vent. He was able to navigate through the vents, and soon he found an exit that led him straight outside. Urkin guards were scattered across the field down below, and a few cried out at the sight of Gerwin. A mustered search party. Gerwin paid no mind to them, his focus locked on carrying the pack in his arms to safety. He flew a long way, and the fuel in his legs were feeling dangerously close to empty. By the time he reached his destination, the flames were sputtering. The facility was tall and wide, the architecture not too simple and not too advanced. Attached to one side of the building was a neon purple sign reading, Urkin Birthing Facility. Its icon lit up beside the Urkin text. On a loop, the icon's animation blinked from a purple sleeping face to a green, wide-eyed smiling face, just like what's displayed upon a Smeet's capsule when it's ready to be born. Grunting in effort and distress, Gerwin burst through a glass window of the highest story, just when his legs gave out and refused to fly any longer. He heard the distant, haunting roar of Marbach's ship following his trail. He had to act fast. With the same X-ray vision he used to find his way through the vents, he located the enormous room stored with seemingly endless rows of soon-to-be reused packs against the walls, and an unorganized pile of them in a deep, wide pit several feet before where Gerwin now stood. He dove in the mess before Marbach and a group of guards, including the two from before, stormed in. A moment of quiet as the alert Urkins and their tallest looked around.
Get out of here.
Marbach suddenly hissed.
Go outside.
Sir?
stammered one of the voices Gerwin recognized.
Get out!
Marbog growled. Scampering ensued. When the room was quiet again, Marbog's voice called out darkly.
I know you're here, pet. What is this now? You want another Erkin to take Bio's pack?
Gerwin did not reply. He clung to Bio's pack underneath the dozens of others as he listened.
You better still have it.
Marbog said.
You saw for yourself how brutal Bio's suffering was. His demise. His pack is obviously too broken to belong to anybody now. It couldn't do anything to save Bio's life. It certainly won't do anything to protect anyone ever again. Think about what you're doing, pet. You could be endangering somebody. You could be killing a future Smeet.
Gerwin finally let go of Bio's pack. He couldn't afford to say another goodbye. He flashed red again, angrily, when he launched himself out of the pile and swiftly landed by the edge of the pit, not far from Marbog. He pointed with one claw and made a fist with the other.
You are the killer!
Marbog tilted his head to the side, sneering wide-eyed at the CPC unit.
Where is that damn pack?
His voice was soft, with a brewing rage. Gerwin too tilted his head to the side and smiled back, glaring in both victory and a rage of his own.
There's lots here, stupid.
Marbog clenched his teeth and lowered his head, his eyes never breaking away from Gerwin's. Gerwin stared back at the leader, his master's murderer, daring him to respond. With unexpected speed, Almighty Tallest Marbog brought out a small weapon Gerwin was not familiar with, and he fired. His aim was perfect. What happened was too quick for Gerwin to emit a sound of surprise or pain. He felt a sting, which a decisecond later became a fierce burn. It was a quick feeling, similar to exploding, but somehow worse.
It looks kind of not good. Yes! Well, that's what the enemy will think. Get it?
I see. Very good. It even fooled me. I am honored to be trusted with such advanced technology.
The former CPC unit sensed he was needed. With red in his vision, he abruptly rose from the floor and showed his respect as a Sir unit by standing up straight with a salute as he introduced himself to the first Erkin he heard and saw.
Grr, reporting for duty.
He hesitated slightly when he said his name. It was not right.
Grr?
The bemused Erkin questioned.
What does the G stand for?
Suddenly Ger's mind was in chaos when, for the first time in this state he was in, he felt reality sink in. He did not know who he was, where he came from, but something was wrong with the way he was existing now. Silently, pieces of himself were battling one another, sending his mess of a brain several messages that contradicted each other. He was a Sir unit with a job to help the Erkin race rule the universe, but a much outdated code told him that the Erkin race was meant to live and nothing more. Everyone was supposed to live, have fun, and love. Another code said that love was a disgusting thing, a weakness. Ger didn't recognize himself, but somehow still knew who he was. But he didn't know who he was. The color in his vision and his voice, they suddenly shifted, and he was almost familiar with both of them.
I don't know.
Bright cyan, naive, innocent. He stupidly leaned over, as if his puzzling thoughts were solid and weighing him down. He noticed he had a tongue after noticing he had a mouth. The Erkin, his new master, continued to stare at him, but his confusion did not mirror Ger's. Ger's confusion was painful. It burned. His head burned. He couldn't think. He wanted to make it stop. In a delusional attempt to do so, with both fists, he repeatedly struck himself where it hurt. And he cried out in joy, to the dismay of half of him. He hadn't meant to cheer, but it was happening. It was fun, but it was horrible. He wasn't controlling himself. He didn't know how to feel about this life. If he was going to live it, if he was going to serve his master and the Urgan race, if he had a purpose, he had to get rid of what he partially assumed was a virus in his head. Skeptically, his master squinted and inquired,
Is it supposed to be stupid?
Gur automatically knew the one who replied was one of the two Almighty Tallest. One part of him said it was correct that there were two. Another part of him recalled an outlined memory of there being only one. Almighty Tallest Purple said pleasantly,
It's not stupid, it's advanced.
Gur's confusion skyrocketed, and his fit continued without laughter and cheering. His master and the Tallest called him advanced, for some unearthly reason. If that was the issue, he did not like how it felt. But he did. It was exhilarating. It was horrible. It burned. He fought to rid himself of the pain, the burning in his head, with no smile anymore, only grunts of frustration each time he made his head hit the floor. While his master watched uncomfortably, the Tallest snickered. Gur didn't react to the laughter, but one of the memories that didn't clearly exist anymore left behind a feeling of grief and betrayal that was triggered ever so slightly.